let's move on, Soapy. We're going to move on to the second thing we're going to talk about as we are, let's see, the 9th is when we're recording this. Yeah. September 25th of this month, we are getting a Netflix series documentary of Vince McMahon. There were news that this was happening. Then it was like, oh, because of all the stuff, it's not going to happen. We finally had a trailer. It's finally done. We are getting it on September 25th. I will say this. I am very intrigued about this. First thing I thought before I watched the trailer was, how far are they going to go? That was my big question. And one of the things, and I know people are going to be like, oh, Ricky, this is why you think so. One of the reasons why I'm most excited about it is because the guys from Tiger King are linked to it. And the reason why I'm excited about this is, have you watched on HBO Max the documentary that the Tiger King guys did called Chimp Crazy?
No.
So basically, I'll just a little explanation of it. So it's a deep dive into the world of people who like raise chimps to then sell them to people as pets. Like that whole world, and like the one kingpin of it, I say kingpin just because she was the biggest. Her name was like Connie, and she was like from Missouri. The Tiger King people did it, but they were like, we are so famous, they know who I am. They wouldn't let me near it because of Tiger King. They had to hire a fake guy to come in, act as him, just so they could get in for that documentary. Like the depths that these Tiger King people go, I'm like, they're gonna find some dirt on Vince McMahon through somebody. Somebody's gonna talk.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first watched the trailer, like, because I was going into it like with the same speculation of like, okay, how far is it gonna go? Because realistically, I'm like, all right, I'm like, they're working with WWE on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, I'm like, obviously, we're not going to get, like, extremely nitty-gritty. Like, because obviously, as well, a lot of this stuff was recorded pre, us knowing a lot about the Janelle Grant, situation that's happening. And obviously, I'm just leaving it at that because...
But they did reference it in the trailer. The allegations and da-da-da-da.
But yeah, like, by that point, like, we only knew about the allegation. Mm-hmm. We didn't like see like the actual documents that got put forward with the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, I'm like, how far are they going to go? Because they're working directly with WWE on it. And I think then we could, probably start getting into the actual trailer itself. And I'm excited for it, but there's a part of me, and this is the main thing that I'm worried about with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried that they're not going to do... I'm trying to find a way to explain it.
You think it's going to be a fluff piece?
I think most of it's going to be. Because what I think they're going to do is they're going to move away from, like, the serious allegations that are against Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Of, like, the way that he's treated women in his company throughout history and things like that. That will not get swept under the rug, but kind of be treated as, like, a back burner thing of, like, oh, yeah, that was also happening. But, like, people didn't like his creative direction. Like, I think people are going to focus more on that, and that's what kind of, I don't want to say worries me, but, like, kind of almost annoys me in a sense. I hope that's not the direction they go, because it's like, I'm watching this because... Sorry, I had to pick up stuff off my desk because Lexi wandered in here.
Yeah, you're good.
Started sniffing exactly where something I can't have her eat was at.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, sorry. If you see my shoulders moving, I'm petting my dog underneath my desk.
She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, she's like, can I talk about Vince McMahon? It's like, no.
Would Vince McMahon do anything to me?
I mean, I hope not.
I hope not
but
either.
Like, no, but yeah, like, that's the thing. I'm just worried that it's not going to show how serious the things against Vince are. That it's just going to be like, well, yeah, like, he did all these great stuff, but, by the end, he was a fool. That's the route I think it's going to go, and me personally, like, I'm still open. Like, I'm going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I have that little bit of worry of, like, all right, like, let's not just sweep everything under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, let's talk about the fact that, like, Vince may genuinely just be a really bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I just like, because like they did mention that I think they're gonna like the beginning of it, like, what I think they're gonna do is the first episode, maybe two, will be getting to know Vince McMahon, kind of building him up because, like, the one thing I will say, all the allegations aside, Vince McMahon is an amazing businessman.
oh, absolutely.
What he was able to do and make WWE or bring WWE to what it is today, because WWE isn't what it is today without Vince McMahon. We shouldn't scoff at that, or we shouldn't ignore that just because of the bad things that he's done.
Oh, yeah.
I know people are going to do the whole Kanye thing of like, oh, Ricky's sitting there going, I know all this, but I really like his music, man. I respect the artist.
He made Graduation.
I respect the artist behind it, but
well, like, no, I think it's sorry, my bad. I don't
go ahead. I just think they're going to build him up. They're going to kind of bring him down a little bit because of the steroid scandal that went on. Then we're going to find out about like, oh, the dealing of after that and stuff. And then maybe at the end, just boom, here's what it is right now. And the hard hit. You know, it'd be the shocking thing that isn't going to happen, but would be amazing if it did.
Huh.
We get to the point where we get to the allegations, and guess who they have on, and guess who they interviewed?
Janelle Grant.
Brock Lesnar.
I love when we went two opposite directions in the same case.
Who was tied to it? Who was the one that people are like, oh, Brock Lesnar's indicated in this? What if he's the one to where it's like, hey, this is what really it was like.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I also think at the same time, though, and I'm not trying to shoot at them. Yeah, I think it's. I don't know how far they would go into the allegations itself. And mind you, I'm not asking for like 3 episodes to be about the allegations themselves.
Just one.
For anyone that may think that's where I'm going with it.
Just one.
But like, mostly, I don't think that they will be like touching that with like a 10-foot pole of like with any detail. Because since it's actively still a thing. So at most it'll be like, oh, teehee guys, look. The allegation happened. So anyways, let's move away from an active investigation. But like, no, like a thing I was going to add of like, in the beginning, I think that they're going to show modern wrestling isn't the same without Vince. You know, whether you like that or not, Vince shaped like how wrestling is in America.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. Like,
he made
Vince
it global.
Was a businessman in a business of carnies. Like, everyone kind of was buddy-buddy with one another. It was like, hey, can I borrow your top talent? You can have my top talent. Vince was like, screw that. No, I want all of them. It's like, I'm not here to share, I'm here to make money. Like, and that's the thing of where I think that they should show that. And I think as well, and this is kind of where I worry about with, like, the fluff piece part. I don't want them to just paint everything that he did early as great. Because, like, you can argue that he also hurt wrestling the most with doing that. Because wrestling was incredibly healthy.
Do you think we're still in the territories now if Vince didn't come along?
I think at some point, something would have come up, like a New Japan, by now, if Vince wasn't a thing. But, like, I think at the same time, though, like, we'd have more wrestling companies. Granted, it's also, you could argue wrestling would just be dead.
Could have died in the Attitude Era time. It could have just died.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like that's also just because that leads down the path of where like they went. Because then it kind of becomes the speculation of like, oh, you know, like well, the territories were really healthy, you know, when everyone was a territory. And then Vince was like, hey, anyone along the East Coast, this is all mine, every one of them. To where you know, like you lose out a bunch of talent, like. That's why I kind of really hope they dig into the territory era of wrestling. And also show why a lot of people hated Vince back then. Because, like, I feel like they're going to have it to it's going to be like, Vince was this up-and-starting kid, and he was a super cool dude, and we all loved him. And it's going to be like, promoters did not like him. Because, like I said, Vince was a businessman in the business of carnies.
Yeah.
He was not there to, you know, be like, yeah, like, my love for wrestling. He's like, my love for money. Like, wrestling's the afterthought.
Basically, what you're saying is, and I hate this movie, but he's basically like Michael Keaton in the live action Dumbo, where it's like you have the carny, blah, 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 businessman comes in. Hey, kid, you're making money here. You can make more money with me. Come with me. I got a company. You could be making 10 times more money than what you're making right now. Even 100 times more money than what you're making right now.
Yeah. And that's the thing of like, because there's a part of me that also really hopes they talk about his dad.
Mm-hmm.
To where, like, his dad, one, is an absolute douche.
Mm-hmm.
Like, douche is such an understatement for how bad of a guy his dad was.
They do say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. Well, especially because, like, with a lot of the stuff that, like, Vince has talked about in the past of, like, like, my dad would beat me just to beat me.
Yeah.
To where, like, I hope that they show, like, his dad was a horrible person, but people in the wrestling business loved him because of how he conducted himself. To show, like, that at the time, Vince was kind of the opposite. He was the polar opposite of what his dad was. Of where, like, his dad was like, I don't care about a handshake deal. Unless it's in writing, I don't care. Like, that's what I hope. Because, like I said, I don't want it to be a fluff piece. Because to me, that's disingenuous. Because I don't want anything to paint someone as, like, this saint amongst people.
I don't think it's gonna with me. I don't think it's gonna be a fluff piece. Yet again, because of what I saw when it said the guys from the Tiger King are the one doing it. Because from what I've seen, Tiger King, the episodes I've seen or the series I've seen with the Chimp Crazy, they don't give a crap about, how does this person feel? The one thing that we are going to get, though, which I do feel that they've done with both of them, we're going to get two sides. Tiger King, it was, they interviewed the Tiger King himself a lot. They also interviewed, what's her name? Carol E. Baskins.
Carol Baskins.
They also interviewed Carol Baskins. In this one, in the Chimp Crazy one, the two sides that are kind of the same thing, they interview the chimp people. Connie, I think the other lady's name is Tammy, who kind of came in and like took everything over for Connie. There's that side. And then the other side, which is the Carol E. Baskin side, is PETA. And what's the actor's name? He's give me 2 seconds. Actor in Chimp Crazy. I literally have to Google it. Because I know I've seen his name. Alan Cumming, that's who it is. It's him and PETA are on the other side, to where it's like, okay, Vince is gonna be one side. Is the other side just gonna be all the wrestlers he's dealt with? Is it gonna be like what is my question is, and maybe you can help me. Vince's side A, he's the Tiger King, the Chimp Crazy side. Who's the Carol Baskins? Who's the PETA side? The opposition to Vince that they're also interviewing.
Bret Hart.
Is it just going to be him, though? Because, like,
I think there's going to be
usually it's got to be someone on the same level as Vince.
Obviously, we don't know everyone who's interviewed for it, but, like, the only thing is, like, Bret Hart's the only one I know that's actively talked out against Vince.
We know The Rock, Stone Cold, Cena, because they were in the trailer.
Yeah, but, like, a lot of times, though, and this is just my whole thing, and that's why I worry about it being a fluff piece, a lot of those are, like, Vince guys.
Yeah.
That, like, they actively come to the defense of Vince for everything. Which, obviously, mind you, I understand where they're coming from. Because
Bret Hart could be that guy. He could be the PETA, the Carol E. Baskin side.
Yeah, like, that's why I think that, one, I would just laugh with the second you get to anything negative. Don't put any of the yes guys there. Just have Bret Hart talk for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And mostly because, all right, Ricky, we're also going to take a bet live on the show. What is the odds that somewhere in this documentary, Bret Hart finds a way to bring up Goldberg?
Odds? 100%.
All right.
100%.
At least we're both on the same side. He's going to bring up Goldberg.
He's going to bring up Goldberg. He's going to bring up Goldberg, and he's going to bring up Shawn. Two people.
Yeah.
Who gets left out first if you had to put your money on it? Shawn or Goldberg?
If anything, he'd leave out Goldberg first.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
it's
the
only
Montreal
just
screw
because...
job?
Yeah. Well, just because Vince was directly involved in that.
Yeah.
So, but like, that's the whole reason why I worry about the fluff piece part.
Uh-huh.
Especially because the fact of, like, one, like I said, they're working directly with WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Of where it's like, we've already kind of heard bits and pieces of WWE's not super happy with some of the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me seems like, we don't like that you're going to dig up the dark past that we have.
Yeah.
So stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because granted, my whole thing will always be, I want the objective truth of history. I don't want abridged. That's why I don't want a fluff piece that treats Vince like, oh, well, he's the greatest thing that ever existed.
But what if it's a guy who's did DBZ abridged and they did WWE abridged?
If only. I could just get to hear Vegeta is like cutting a promo.
No. They do their own thing. Not DBZ characters. They do their own thing and they dub over WWE.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you could get away with it without them cease and desisting you, that'd be great.
Good point.
But, like, no, that's the thing of, like, I am really intrigued in this entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who all is involved. I know they've talked about that there's a bunch of people who got interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that, because, like, I know The Rock, Stone Cold, John Cena, Bret Hart, and there's, like, 3 other people that I think that pop up in the trailer, aside from Vince himself.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, my whole thing, and this is just where I go with it, I really hope they also bring in people who were involved in the territory days of wrestling to talk about why people didn't like Vince for that. Because the problem is, you know, if you only have people who worked for the company, they're going to be biased. Because at some point, it's talking about your old boss. Like, that's why I don't want just the yes men.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, we've heard John Cena talk about Vince. He would never say a bad thing about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could be like, John Cena, I will pay you $13 trillion to say a bad thing about Vince, and he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
To where, like, that's why I'm like, okay, I'm like, we gotta, you know, you gotta at least find the people who are willing to say things. Mm-hmm. That's at least just a me thing, though. But, like, overall, I am interested in, like, this actual documentary itself. I want to see how they present everything.
So the guy who's directing it directed Tiger King. He's not directing Chimp Crazy. But from the Wikipedia page, the starring section, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, John Cena, Bret Hart, Triple H, Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, so that's like 90% yes men, and then like Bischoff will say like 3 mean things about him. Bret Hart will tell Vince to go jump off a bridge.
Bret Hart's a no man.
Like, that's just the only thing with that group I don't like, is that I guarantee when we get to the negative side, and they start talking about the downfall of Vince, none of those people will be interviewed aside from Bret. Like, Bret and Bischoff will be the only 2, because they're the only ones
they'll bring in other people that, like...
That's what I hope they do. Because, like, the second I hear, you know, like, Hulk Hogan still talks extremely highly.
Because let's be honest, Vince has his enemies. It's not hard for them to find enemies of Vince McMahon. When you're a guy and you carry yourself like Vince, you're going to have enemies.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, go ask the people who were interviewed by Dark Side of the Ring. Be like, hey, do any of you guys want to talk about Vince?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I think one of the people, and, like, mind you, as much as I don't like his general wrestling opinions, but, like, get Jim Cornette to come talk about it. He was a booker during the territories.
Yeah.
He was also an employee under Vince multiple times. Like, have him talk about it, because he's more qualified than a lot of people to talk about Vince. Because, I mean, hell, he was around Vince damn near as long as John Cena was.
Yeah.
To where it's like, and mind you, and that's not a take of John Cena, but, like, you know, have, like, I think it's make it an equal playing field of people who can speak on Vince that don't have a clear bias towards or against him.
Because it's hard for some of these guys like The Rock, Stone Cold, John Cena, because you look at it and you go, I'm not who I am today without Vince.
Oh, yeah.
To where it's like, even though you might understand, like, hey, Vince ain't a perfect guy, I bet you they look at it and go, man, I'm not, like, especially The Rock, I'm not making as much money as I am today. My life is nowhere near what it is today without Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally what John Cena's done. Of, like, John Cena was like, yeah, like, he's like a second dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he always treated me and my family great.
Yeah.
And, like, because I remember it was someone asked him something about Vince.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, he was like, I can't say a bad thing about him. I'm like, I feel like you could probably find one.
I think you can find one thing
Like,
he needs
I
to
think
work
for,
on.
like, but, like, that's the thing. Of, John Cena's talked about that, like,
Mm-hmm.
without Vince, he'd be a nobody. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
granted, that's the same thing for a lot of wrestlers. Without Vince, they're nobodies. But at the same time, a lot of them still would have made a name if they didn't have Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Stone Cold, I mean, granted, Stone Cold wouldn't have been as big as he was. Like, Stone Cold wouldn't have been as big. The Rock wouldn't have been as big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Undertaker, guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you get just to the point of where, to me, like, the only problem I have with that cast is that's a lot of people who will never say a negative thing about him.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I'm not trying to get this to be a hate piece on Vince either.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, it's like Ricky said, you have to look at the good and bad.
Yeah.
You can't just look at, like, yeah, like, Vince is a garbage human being, but, like, he also made great wrestling products for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where, like, for anyone who's on Twitter, this is going to turn into, like, the Benoit conversation all over again.
Mm-hmm.
That happens on Twitter, like, every, 5 months for people. Like, yeah, I mean, I know Benoit killed his family, but, like, he had some good graps, right? We can forget about the murder, right?
He had some good graps.
Yeah, over, like, to me, you have to be able to look at everything in a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, I hate Vince as a human being because of everything we hear about him. I also respect Vince as a businessman.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, yeah, like, I overall lean towards not liking Vince, but, like, Vince also shaped my childhood as a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't be like, actually, I still would have been a wrestling fan without Vince. No, I wouldn't have. I never would have looked for TNA. I never would have looked for these other companies if I didn't have an interest in wrestling.
I'll be completely honest. What you said earlier, I don't know if wrestling's still around today without Vince. Because I'll be honest, my prediction would be territories would have died in the 90s and 2000s. Because the territories wouldn't have lived, like, I know we rag on the Attitude Era for being what it is. I'm nostalgic of it because I grew up with it. But everything, like, the society of how everything was extreme and, like, whoa, like, how we went, like, in the 90s and 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, pushing the boundaries. How offensive could we get? Attitude Era matched it. And that's why I think it was so popular. Because it went to that kind of extreme, offensive at times, like, push the boundaries to where it fit right into what was going on during that time.
Yeah. And especially just as well, like, I think that's a good hypothetical to look at of, like, how adaptive were the territories. Because, like, for instance, like, wrestling in, like, Oregon was entirely different than wrestling in Florida, and, like, vice versa. To where it's, like, I think it would have been an interesting... I think it's an interesting, like, thought piece to think about, like, what territory would have survived.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in technicality, I have to put the air quotes because it's a full wrestling company, but it was a territory, like the NWA Power. The NWA was a territory.
Yeah.
To where it's one of those things of, like...
The NWA is what Flair was a part of, right? Flair, Shivani,
Flair was a part
the
of,
Four
like, 10 of them,
Horsemen.
well, Four Horsemen is more like Florida Championship Wrestling.
Yeah,
and
but
stuff.
wasn't the NWA the one where it's like all the Ric Flair promos from, like, that studio, like the alligator shoes?
Yeah.
That was NWA, no?
Yeah, there's the weird, like... Granted, territories and stuff used to work together a lot back then.
Yeah.
To where, like... Because, like, FCW, which Florida Championship Wrestling, which later became WCW. Like, that group, the NWA, and, like, a couple other ones would always work together. And they'd all use, like, the same little studio set.
Who knows?
But
Without
like,
the thing I just thought of, you brought up WCW. What if in an alternate multiverse, WWE never existed, WCW becomes a thing, they become the top dog?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's actually, and kind of this is a little counter to that.
Mm-hmm.
WCW only became a thing because of WWE.
Okay, so it doesn't exist without WWE.
Yeah, to where like that's the thing. Over like when I say that like Vince changed wrestling, I'm not like it's not a joke. Like
Mm-hmm.
Vince altered the path of wrestling.
Yeah.
Because before territories were all perfectly fine being buddy buddy with one another,
Mm-hmm.
being like, hey, you guys can have Hulk Hogan for a month. Can I have Dustin for or like can I have Dusty for a month? And they're like, yeah,
So without
sure.
Vince, wrestling isn't even mainstream at all. It's just kind of like, yeah, they
Yeah.
kind of do their own thing. They're not on TV. Like,
Yeah. Wrestling's not as big, but at the same time it's also like it would almost be I don't want to say in a healthier state than it is now.
mm-hmm.
Because it's the weird like
It
wrestling.
wouldn't be a monopoly, is what you're saying.
Well, not even just Monopoly, but like I'm trying to
For
find
a
a way to
while, it was
properly
kind of a
word it.
monopoly because WWE was
Oh
it.
yeah.
I know
Well,
you
yeah,
had
no,
like
I'm not
you had
saying at one point
Impact
it
and
wasn't a
TNA.
monopoly. Yeah, like what I mean is, I'm trying to find a way to word it. When I say healthy,
Uh-huh.
what I mean is the wrestling business itself in America, I think would be doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Because relatively, when you look at like, let's look at like 2010,
Mm-hmm.
all right? Like, we're not going to include, like, I'm going early enough to where, like, this is where WWE's still pulling in, like, 2-3 million viewers, you know,
Yeah.
like, a day
Mm-hmm.
for their shows.
Yeah.
To where, like, at that point, they're doing extremely well. That let's then look at, you know, the other wrestling companies in America. Like,
Mm-hmm.
TNA at that point was the second biggest.
Mm-hmm.
TNA was on a rapid decline at this point.
Yeah.
But, like, they were still pulling in a lot of viewers that time. Fair. We then go to the next one down, ROH. Ugh, ROH wasn't doing so good.
Ugh.
You know? Yeah, and then you keep moving down. MLW, ugh, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you just keep going down and down and down to where
Down,
it's like,
down, diddly rock.
I mean, basically, yeah.
Sugar,
But, like-
we're going down swinging.
But, like, it's once you get to that, like, the primordial stages of, like, MLW, CZW, GCW, like,
Yeah.
those kind of groups,
Yeah.
like those were roughly now mind you people who are territory fans are going to rip me apart when I say it. That's roughly like how big the territories kind of were,
Mm-hmm.
like not viewership wise. For anyone who's about to rip into me and be like, well, you sold out your stadium and blah 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 blah, shut up, we don't care. It was easy to sell out stadiums when no one had anything to do.
Yeah.
But like when you look at stuff like that, like the size of like GCW, MLW, stuff like that, of where like they get like 5,000 viewers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really like there's not a lot of people that watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be more of the state of what wrestling would be in. So a lot of people would be like, well, what do you mean by healthy? The problem is, imagine how much bigger a lot of these territories would be if they're like if all the top American talent's not just consecrated in two places.
Mm-hmm.
Because like at the time in like 2010, like ROH is starting to kind of grow.
Yeah.
Because we're getting to that point that like, well, ROH is in a weird place at that point because all their top guys are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Tyler Black had just left, Seth Rollins. A lot of their guys are just leaving in general because
Mhm.
ROH can't pay them, you know, what they're worth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the horizon, hey, KO and Sammy are there. So like, it's one of those weird things, and then like, you know, and then TNA, you know, TNA is paying everyone a crap ton of money to get them to go there because who the hell wants to work at TNA at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows 2010's TNA, you know. Yeah. Ugh.
Ugh.
But yeah, like, imagine if everyone's not consecrated in just two companies
Mm-hmm.
and like all that talent is just spread across America, or even some of them go overseas.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like I said, I think wrestling would be healthier but way smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, imagine you could just go to a random show in like, give me some random like hodunk town in the middle of nowhere.
DeKalb, Illinois.
Yeah, like you could
Or,
go there.
I'm sorry. Let's go even more. Morris, Illinois.
Yeah, you could just randomly go there and just see Mustafa Ali versus Seth Rollins.
Mm-hmm. or Cicero, Illinois seems to be where all the indie shows are.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
like, you could just go to a random show and see these guys who are big talents.
That was like, I knew friends that
I love that I say big talents and I put Mustafa Ali there.
That was like, I knew friends that went to indie shows like when I was younger, and this is where I'm jealous of them because I didn't even know about indie shows. Where before he went to WWE, they got to see Seth Rollins in Cicero, Illinois, at an indie show.
Yeah,
before he was huge.
Seth pre 5 million knee injuries. That's prime Seth, baby. But like, yeah, that's what I mean though. Of like, that's where the interesting thought piece is of like, would it have survived the 90s and 2000s kind of massive cultural change? And if it did, I think it would be. I think wrestling would be.
Or would wrestling just be a bunch of like what the indie circuit is now?
I think that's probably what it would be. To where it's like, hey, like you may get like bigger groups. Like I'll keep using company names, but like you'd have like the MLW territory or whatever.
The TNA
and also,
territory.
At some point, it still would have become corporatized anyways, because it's inevitable.
Someone would have stepped up.
Yeah, someone would have shown up. Who knows who would have done it? But like Vince wasn't the first, but he was the first one to actually.
Dana White.
Yeah, Dana White would have been like, dude, screw actually punching people. Get these fake wrestling guys in here.
Slap fights.
Yeah. Dude, slap fight is actually really fun to watch, by the way. Like, I understand that people can be like, but there's actual health implications. I don't care.
There was one that I saw, the guy got slapped, and it looked like his head did a full 360 like in the cartoons.
Yeah. Dude, you gotta respect getting slapped like that, dude. I would pussy out of that as fast as possible.
They got slapped. They got slapping in the face. They also got slap ass going on.
Yeah,
have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Soapy's like, of course you would bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, no. To be fair, I've indulged in slap ass as well.
Play a little slap ass out there.
Yeah, slap ass.
A little water boy. But yeah, I'll be honest. I cannot wait for this documentary.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good.
I hope they go deep. Just gonna leave it there.
All right. Well, visual viewers, in case audio listeners, Ricky stared into the camera after saying that.
I didn't stare into the camera. I didn't mean.
Well,
to stare
you looked
into the forward.
Camera. You kept putting the pen from your eye and pointing towards the camera. I'm just saying.
I went like it was in my head of like, where do I go from here? I said that. Where do I go from here? How do I get out of here? How do I pivot from here? Brain couldn't do it.
How do I get myself out of that one?
Because right here, I'm like, I hope they go deep. And then I'm just thinking, okay, where's the next move? Where's the next word? Where's the
it's
pivot?
Like every instinct in your head trying to fight that's what she said. That's what she said.
I didn't even think about that. I'm just like, oh, shoot. Where do I go? Where do I go? Where do we go? Quick, we got to get out of this. But that's going to do it for Heel Talk. We'll end on that point. As now I'm literally crying. Yeah, well, I'm not going deep, but not too deep. Not too deep. Yeah. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Remember, Discord, greatest community in the universe. Join it down below. We have a wrestling chat. We also do predictions for pay-per-views each and every time there's a pay-per-view.
I'm catching up in the predictions, baby. I was in dead last at one point. I'm in second now. Retro better watch out.
Only because there have been a couple recently that I forgot to do. All out.
No, I'm not even talking about like, between just me and you.
I know. Me in general. I haven't done a few of them. No Mercy.
Yeah, I mean, you've been busy.
No Mercy. I did. Which one didn't I do? All Out I don't think you did the... Yeah, All Out you didn't do. Did I do Berlin? I did Berlin.
I think so. I'd have to look through the lists again.
There was another one I like. So I did all... Was it All In? I think All In was the one.
Yeah, I think All In may have been the other one recently you didn't do. Yeah. But there's been like a couple sprinkled throughout. But I also know you're a busy person.
I'm a busy man. I'm a busy man now that I got a job.
He's a busy bee, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he's got a job.
If you guys haven't up pitch at ultimateautographs.com, check it out. But Soapy, thank you for another great podcast. We will be back in 2 weeks. Talking more wrestling. When's the next pay-per-view? October 6th is Bloodbath or Bad Blood.
I'm trying to remember. Is there another one this month? I don't think so.
I know October 5th, October 6th is Bad Blood. That's the next WWE one. When's the next AEW one?
I don't remember if this is October or November.
Okay, we'll have to look that up. We'll be
Because
back
I
with
think the
predictions
next
for those
one's
as well.
Wrestle Dream, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
I think that's
next
I'll
week.
double check.
Next podcast, we'll have the next prediction for you. We'll have an idea of what it was because we'll actually look it up before the podcast. But Soapy, thank you for another podcast. Discord, Patreon, all of our socials in the description. Hit that like button, that sub button. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Soapy, any final words for the listeners and viewers out there?
I'll say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Sorry,
oh yeah, brother, I like that, brother.
Man, do I love when it'll just, throw out random stuff.
Be what it takes to be a true American, brother.
Yeah, so it seems like, it seems Wrestle Dream's the next AEW pay-per-view.
Date?
Which is October 12th.
Okay, so we'll have Bad Blood first, then Wrestle Dream. But that's going to do it for us. We'll be back in 2 weeks. As always, have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
As always, we'd like to thank the people who make these videos possible, our patrons, whose names are displayed on the screen now. If you'd like to become a patron, click the link in the description below, and if you'd like to check out another video from MVP Entertainment, hit the video in the upper left. As always, thanks for watching.